Advance and be recognized, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sitrep podcast, your forward operations base for all things military and historical wargaming. I am your host, Risky Jim, and today we are back at the miniatures gaming table to finish up our game of Battlegroup by Iron Fist Publishing and Plastic Soldier Company. Part 1 of this game has already been posted onto our channel. There's a link to Part 1 in the description of this video. Check it out if you want to see how this game got started and how it progressed to this point. Our scenario deals with the American breakout from the Anzio beachhead, a historical scenario which took place 80 years ago this week. Anzio was part of the Italian campaign of World War II and is a highly charged and controversial chapter in American military history to this day. We went over all of the background and context for Anzio in part 1 of this video. Again, check out that link in the description if you're interested in this material. Suffice it to say that it's the last days of May 1944 and things are finally starting to break loose. The Americans and British in the Anzio beachhead are more than anxious, to put it lightly, to break free out of this pocket and open up some of these southern roads that lead directly into Rome. So our game features elements of Combat Command A of the 1st U.S. Armored Division, Old Ironsides, driving up the Albano Road toward its crossing point with the Campileone rail line. Standing in their way are exhausted survivors of the 3rd Panzergrenadier Division, specifically Panzer Battalion 103. So we've got Devin playing the Germans, and myself and Jennifer B playing the Americans. We had Mark Ritchie helping play the Americans before, but by this point of the game he had to take off to take care of another appointment. It's been pretty wild so far. When the Americans deployed and maneuvered their tanks, by the way, we're talking specifically about Able Company 3rd Battalion of the 1st U.S. Armored Regiment, they did so in such a way where the Germans weren't really able to leverage the firepower of their 88mm gun. Therefore, they had to move their tanks and Stugs out against us instead of the other way around. This largely negated the inherent German defensive advantage and allowed us as the American players to largely shoot up the German armor. Then the Americans rolled for their P-38 Lightning airstrike, which we're about to resolve in part 2 of this video. Quick disclaimer, as referee, I largely kind of screwed up how this airstrike got resolved, and even more importantly, how we resolved the German ground fire that was supposed to defend against this airstrike. The Germans got kind of hosed by this rules error, so to kind of balance things out and to make for a dramatic video, I kind of hosed the Americans in return in the following fire phase. So there's going to be a lot of irregularities in this airstrike, the first part of this upcoming video. I apologize for that, but both sides wound up with equal numbers of battle rating counters being drawn. It kind of balanced itself out, and hey, hopefully it makes for a fun video. But rather than sit here and just draw about this airstrike, how about we go to the footage and see how this airstrike and the rest of this battle group scenario turns out. So, like we said at the end of part 1, an American P-38 Lightning is coming in with 10 5-inch anti-tank rockets, and that little German STKFZ 6/2 is trying to put up some ground fire. And yeah, I completely do this part wrong, guys. I should only have the players roll 2d6 on a double fire order, looking for 6s on area fire. What you really want to look for here is a pinning result. You can't really pin down an aircraft in the sky, but it signifies that you've chased the plane away and potentially scored a hit. But again, I had them roll for aimed fire instead of pinning fire, so that's my fault. Here come Jennifer B's 10 5-inch rockets. She's looking for 6s, and cool, looks like she scored 2 hits. Now this part we did resolve correctly, because airstrikes are almost like artillery missions, where you first have to determine which of the attacks are going to be resolved as area fire and which are going to be resolved as aimed fire. Alright, so aimed fire hits, in other words, the rocket directly hit the tank. Those were those 2 6s that we just resolved. Now we have to see whether or not they will penetrate the armor. They need to beat a 4 on 2d6 to penetrate the German armor. The first one scored a 4 exactly, and the second one beat it with a 9. So it looks like one of those Mark IVs has been pinned, and the second one's been destroyed. Now, when Devin drew the required battle rating counters to pay for those lost Mark IVs, one of them turned out to be a breakdown. So now he gets to select any one of my units to try and disable it through mechanical failure. Obviously, he picks my M10 Wolverine tank destroyer, and he rolls a 1, no effect, because the Germans literally can't buy a break. The American infantry in that charge are going to try and finish off that pinned down Mark IV with some bazooka fire. So there's the first hit, and then to penetrate, okay, she fails the penetration check, and yes, we did make the observation check earlier. Now she takes her second rocket shot. It's an open fire order. That's another hit. Let's see if she can penetrate. She needs a 6. She gets a 6 exactly. That's a pinning result. That Mark IV is now double pinned. But then Devin makes both of his unit morale saves. That Mark IV is okay. More American bazooka infantry are waiting in this ruined building. They're going to try and take another shot on that pinned Mark IV. It's long. It's at the very, very limit of the bazooka's range, and it's through all that tree cover. It's going to be a long shot, but hey. So first, Jennifer B needs to observe. She needs a 2, and she makes it pretty easily. And then she goes to take the actual shot with the rocket. And with that green 6, okay, she did get one lucky shot, and has landed a flank hit on that last German Mark IV. Alright, now to penetrate, and again, we're penetrating the flank armor. And with that 8, yeah, that easily does it. Long story short, take your first shot. That is another wrecked German tank, the last German tank, I believe, and another battle rating counter for the German player. The Americans try to press their advantage by moving up with this M3 half-track with M2 heavy machine gun, and they're trying to hose down the remnants of that German infantry by that little knoll of high ground there. Alright, so she's made the observation check. Now she gets 5 dice. She needs 5 ups because she has moved, and yeah, no hits there, scored by the Americans. 2 more American artillery missions have now landed, pinned down the remnants of that infantry squad, and failed to pin down that 5cm mortar crew. A second mission has hit that building, and it's close enough to pin down those infantry survivors again. So with multiple pins, we got to make sure that we resolve it correctly, because it is possible for the Germans to rout, but in this case, they're okay. And yeah, that's the second short round American artillery has dropped on this part of the battlefield. I don't know, we may have to have a word with whoever's in charge of that battery. The beginning of German turn 4, and here is where I realized just how badly I screwed over the Germans when I didn't really resolve their air defense fire correctly. I don't think that P-38 airstrike should have been allowed to go in. So to kind of swerve the game back onto some kind of balance, I give their flak vehicle a free shot. We're using aimed fire. I know that's not correct. I'm just trying to correct the game. Long story short, take your second shot, shoots down that P-38, and brings the game back into some kind of balance. We have a potential infantry battle that might get started here when I try to sneak an American armored infantry squad around the German left. These German infantry were on ambush fire, but they failed to observe, so I'm still hidden for now. Stand by for next turn when these guys might pop out of the brush Chuck Norris style and do some real damage. Continuing the American turn, I'm moving forward with all of my Shermans here. They all have pintle-mounted 50 caliber machine guns, except for the one that just snapped off. Damn it, I'm going to have to fix that later. But for game purposes, they all have pintle-mounted 50s on their turrets. And yeah, they pretty much wiped out that German squad that was threatening my little Chuck Norris team. Then when he drew that battle rating counter, however, he got a mine strike. And, okay, who's he going to play the mine strike on? Well, needless to say, he's again going to try to take out my most powerful armored unit, or at least my most powerful anti-tank gun, the M10 Wolverine. But then on the mine strike, he rolls a 3, fails to penetrate the armor. Again, the Germans just cannot buy a break. Double fire order for this American armored infantry squad in this ruined building here at the center of the battlefield. They are trying to engage this German forward artillery observer team in that barn. They failed their first observation check, but they made the second one, so they'll only get a single chance to shoot. It's 8 dice because they have 6 riflemen plus a BAR, a Browning automatic rifle in there. They need 4s to hit, so it looks like they've scored 3 hits. Then to the German cover saves, we're counting the barn as hard cover, but even against that relatively easy check, they don't get any saves. That is going to be 3 hits. There's only 2 guys in the unit. That's another destroyed German unit and another German battle rating counter. Meanwhile, the German anti-tank gun that is there on Overwatch, that's just how we mark ambush fire, decides to interrupt the American turn and put 2 shells into that building where the Americans are firing from. First shell misses, second shell hits, but the Americans save their hits. No damage done. Meanwhile, that bazooka gunner that never fired before is going to try and sling a rocket back at the anti-tank gun. But then he fails to observe twice. It's the anti-tank gun that just shot at us. How could you miss it? Fog of war, what can I say? The Americans are calling in war artillery missions. Again, from Part 1, they have that onboard T-19 75mm howitzer motor carriage and also an M7 105mm howitzer motor carriage. That schoolhouse is where their artillery observer is, and what they're trying to knock out is that German 88. That red 4 dice is actually the strike location where it drifted to. Another short round for the Americans. That's like 3 short rounds in a row. But now Jennifer B is rolling to see whether or not these are going to be pinning or killing attacks. Looks like she's getting 2 pinning attacks. We're going to see if they do any good. Alright, that's 1 pin on the 88 and 1 not. Alright, so you got to be careful with multiple pins because that is when the gun can be abandoned. So you have to watch out for that. Okay, that was the 105. Let's see if the 75 can get anything done. So this one is going to miss by, looks like, 8 inches, and then we use a D12 to clock ray the direction, and it's going to be 9 o'clock. Alright, so if north is 12 o'clock, we're going to miss, looks like 8 inches straight to the west. Alright, so we quickly measure that, and 8 inches, that's going to be the impact point where the 4 is. It doesn't matter because the 88 is still within 10, it's going to affect the 88 and then that transport back there. Alright, so we'll see if any of these are going to be killing attacks. Okay, finally, a 6. The American artillery finally scores a killing attack. So now we actually use the HE blast data that's on the card. Alright, so 4 dice against a 4 up. Ooh, that is 3 hits. Okay, the Germans better get lucky with a save here. But once again, Devin cannot save to save his ass, no pun intended. Alright, so there's only 4 guys in the crew. That's 1, 2, 3 are now hit, which means the last man standing rule takes effect. That 88 is done. German turn 5 starts off pretty bloody for the Americans when the MG-34 on that half-track and also the MG-34 machine gun team wipe out the rest of the American infantry in that church. So that was actually 2 units. That was the remnants of the armored infantry squad and also an M1919 Browning 30 caliber machine gun team. That's 2 counter draws for the Americans. Now this German half-track has moved into this wheat field and is now going to try and take a shot on this American half-track. So he only gets 1 chance to observe because he moved. It's a regular move and fire order, and he fails the observation. So there'll be no fire coming from that half-track this turn. Here's a quick drama shot of the 88 burning, but long story short, take your 3rd shot. I'm not really sure how much influence he really had on the battle. We had him pinned down with artillery a great amount of the time, and as you can see, most of the American armor maneuvered forward to the east. Our general idea there naturally was to deny the 88 any shots, but I'm still breathing a little easier now that he's on fire. The German player is now wrapping up his turn, and he's using his remaining orders to set his units on ambush fire. Now we're on to American turn 6, and you can see where I'm getting a little aggressive with my 2 platoons of American armor. By the way, here is my company commander, Able 66, 1st platoon, and most of 2nd platoon. I did drop 1 tank back here to an immobilization earlier in the game. Meanwhile, this armored infantry squad has moved up as well. Disembarked, took some cover behind those hedges there along the Campileon rail line. And we're going to start putting some fire into the German flank here. We're going to see if we can roll up this line a little bit. Remaining German infantry squads over there on the western side of the table are in real trouble under pressure from Jennifer B's redeployed American armored infantry squads. We've just knocked down the German infantry platoon leader, so that's not their senior commander. That does enforce 2 counter draws, but it will knock 1 off of the German order dice modifier on their turn. There's still some more American infantry fire. It looks like the 50 cal is going to put some more fire down on that German infantry squad. I don't really know why they're in the open. I guess they were trying to move and got caught out there. Alright, so it's going to be 5d6s. That was going to be 2 hits. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and resolve some saves. Even in the open, infantry always gets a save. Granted, you need a 6 up, and doesn't look like Devin has any such luck this time. American artillery has finally remembered where they left the live ammunition. They just dropped a fire mission right here, and with double 6s, scored 2 actual killing attacks. First one triggered the last man standing rule on the German 5cm mortar crew that was right there by that little hill, and the next one is going to hit that half-track right there. Alright, so it's a armor penetration attack against the worst armor on the half-track, which is pretty much the lowest armor in the game. But the shell more or less lands inside the half-track. And with that roll, yeah, boom, that's going to be the end of that half-track for sure. Beginning German turn 6, and no, they are not giving up, because here comes that half-track trying to put fire through that gap on those Americans on the far side. They didn't score any hits though. Notice the American squad does have a 9-point medic with them. They didn't need it though, because the Germans didn't score any hits. But now we have more German infantry within 5 inches of that empty American half-track, and they are declaring an anti-tank grenade attack. The German infantry in this list have been upgraded to include anti-tank grenades. The first thing you have to do is actually get the squad motivated to launch the attack. Attacking armored vehicles on foot is pretty scary. Looking at the unit experience test table and finding the rating for a regular unit, looks like Devin needs a 3-up. He rolls a 5, so that charge is going in. Next, to resolve the actual grenade attack, we simply roll a d6 on that chart. Looks like Devin rolled a 5. So that is a success, and that is going to be a penetration 6 attack against the side armor of an American M3 half-track. Oh god. He basically needs a 3-up on 2d6. He rolls a 10. So yeah, that is definitely the end of that American half-track. So they charge down the hill, boom, smoke the half-track, and that's going to be a counter draw for the American player. Of course, when I draw the required battle rating counter, what do I get? I get a breakdown, which I quickly play on the German flak vehicle. Why the German flak vehicle? It's the only vehicle they have left. So, yeah. Nevertheless, I still have to roll on the breakdown table that we see here in the booklet to determine exactly what happens, because there are different possible results from that counter. Okay, looks like I got a 4, so reverting back to the chart. That vehicle is now going to be immobilized for the rest of the game. He's already pinned down, now he's immobilized. That poor bastard, he's got all the problems. Ooh, quick heart attack moment here. We're now into the German turn, and yeah, he almost took out my company commander. I got a little too bold over here on the American right wing. That would have cost me my radio bonus for command dice. That would have cost me 2 battle rating counters. That would have cost me my senior commander. That would have been bad, and he came damn close. Alright, slow down, Jim. Be careful. You almost just lost the game by getting a little too crazy here on the American right wing. The Germans wrap up their turn with an artillery strike. He was aiming at my company commander. It drifted to the west, and it looks like it's going to land right there on 1st Platoon. Okay, that's alright, especially with that roll. Holy cow. Alright, so those 2 1s don't count as anything. The 3 and the 4 are going to be pinning attacks only. Alright, so then we go ahead and roll the pinning attacks, and he gets a 5, so he actually does pin down one of my tanks. Over to the American turn, I'm going to open fire with some of my infantry here at the rail line, and that bazooka is going to lead off and try to put a rocket into that anti-tank gun that just tried to kill the company commander. So first I roll to observe, I make it with a 3. Now it's time to actually try to hit that thing. Alright, so the 6 is obviously a hit, and 3 will miss, however, because the gun is obscured. It's an open fire order, obviously, so I am shooting twice. Now we have to see how much damage that bazooka did to the anti-tank gun crew. Alright, so it's 3 dice at 5 up with an HE shell from the bazooka. So let me go ahead and try and roll that. Alright, that's only 1 kill, so first he has to see if he can save, and if he doesn't save, that's a casualty. Then he has to make a morale check. Alright, so just to kind of buzz through what's going to happen here, we're going to continue firing with all the rest of these small arms and machine gun weapons. I've got a 30 caliber, I've got a 50 caliber, I've got a BAR, I've got looks like 3 other riflemen in there. We're going to continue to put fire into that anti-tank gun until we can knock down at least 2 of the crew and thus trigger the last man standing rule. Meanwhile, 2 more of my tanks have rumbled forward over the rail line, and they are now going to take some point-blank fire against that hapless German half-track there. Seems like overkill. it is overkill. So this is definitely the time to shift from AP ammunition to HE ammunition, high explosive. You don't want to waste armor-piercing ammunition on targets like this. Point-blank fire into half-tracks. An HE shell will probably be enough. This is one of those great times when the battle group system sort of encourages you to make economical choices. I need a 6-up with HE ammunition to penetrate the armor. Boom, he's already dead. Then I pinned him down. Then I killed him again. Okay, it was still a little bit of overkill, but you gotta be careful here, guys, because as you can see looking at the chart, some of my tanks are already out of AP ammunition. You gotta be careful about your ammo loads. Okay, hopefully to close out the game, my infantry has opened fire on that Kubelwagen there, scored 2 hits, and now I'm moving forward with some of my tanks, the ones that didn't blow up that half-track. And between 2 50 caliber machine guns on pintles and 2 bow-mounted 30 calibers in the hull, they're going to score at least one more hit on that Kubelwagen. That will kill that Kubelwagen, force another German counter draw, and that finishes the game. The Germans are now at 34 points out of their limit of 32. Meanwhile, the Americans are at 25 out of 32. So yeah, that's going to be the game as an American victory. And yep, there we go, folks. That is another game of Battle Group in the books. We're going to go ahead and take some drone footage, if you will, before we start tearing down the table there. It was most players' first time with Battle Group. Mark has played Battle Group 1 or 2 times before, but for Jennifer B. and Devin, this was their first time with the system. I think they did really well, especially since we used the full rule set, complete with ammunition supply and even airstrikes, which, granted, I did kind of screw up the airstrike mechanics, but they happen very rarely in Battle Group. Nevertheless, great job, everybody. A great game. And yeah, congratulations to the victors, and well fought to the honorably defeated. And that's game, folks. As you see, we wound up with what looks like a pretty solid American victory, but don't be fooled. The score was only 25 to 34, putting the Germans within 2 or maybe 3 counter draws of actually stealing this game. And even that is a lot closer than you might think. You saw where I damn near had to draw 2 counters when I almost lost my Able 66 tank company commander. And yeah, 1 or 2 more hits against an American machine gun team, remember they do count as separate units, that could have been 2 more counters right there. So yeah, this game was actually a little bit closer than it might have appeared. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about Battle Group, is that battle rating counter draw mechanic, where you know damn well how well you've been hurt. You hear people screaming over the radio, you hear shouts go up for stretcher bearers and so on, but you never really know just how badly the enemy's been hurt, and thus how close you might be to actually winning the game. Historically, of course, the Americans had kind of a rough ride here, but once 1st U.S. Armored Division was able to clear the Albano Road, they were able to hook up with other American units that had swung around the other side of the Colli Lazioni mountain along the Valmontone Road. Once Albano and Valmontone roads were cleared, both these roads lead straight into Rome from the southeast. Rome was in Allied hands by the 4th of June, 1944. The rather vain American general in command of the 5th Army, however, only had about 36 hours to enjoy his time in the limelight, however, because, as we all know, on 6th of June 1944, the Allies hit the Atlantic Wall up in Normandy. Even with the fall of Rome, however, this wasn't even close to the end of the Italian campaign, and fighting would continue up the Italian boot until the very end of the war, Allied spearheads reaching the foothills of the Italian Alps only in spring of 1945. And that's going to wrap us up for today, folks. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Please remember to hit that notification bell. Also, please consider joining the Sitrep Podcast Discord. There is an auto-accept invitation link to our Discord in the description of this video. Join our community, see what everybody's up to, and best of all, show us what's happening on your hobby table. But for now, this is Risky Jim with the Sitrep Podcast. We are rounds complete for another episode, and as always, Tango Mike for watching.